My friend, welcome to the Consciouspreneur Journal. This is Ahmed, your host and founder of the Voice of the Entrepreneur podcast. And today's topic is one that every entrepreneur can not only relate with, but also needs support on. Every business needs customers to thrive, but to do that, you have to be able to get them first. Now, there's really only two ways of doing that. One is by attracting clients, and in today's world that we live in of social media and prolific marketing, it has taken a life of its own. Simply put, attracting clients means that you create a persona for yourself and brand yourself as the person, product, or service that can solve someone's pain point. Now, this can be done with a person, it can be done with a product. There's so many different ways of doing this. We see examples of that everywhere. It works really well for larger, well-known brands. Now, it used to be that attraction marketing required a little bit of a celebrity beforehand as a prerequisite. But now it is the other way around. Attraction marketing is now the vehicle to create a celebrity status. And this type of marketing capitalizes on that persona to attract and retain clients. The other one, on the other hand, which has been the more traditional method of doing things, which is you go out and get your clients yourself, what is traditionally called prospecting. But today in this conversation, Shanann and I want to explore the idea that comes from a very well-known book called The Prosperous Coach, which is the idea of creating a client. I know that this can seem a little unsettling. To create a client can come across as arrogant and even a little manipulative, but there is another way of looking at it that can be quite empowering and even transformational if we see it from that perspective. Now, there is the idea of providing service that we hear about all the time. Provide service, provide service. That is the mantra that we hear almost everywhere. But this concept will take this to a whole new level. It is simple, yet a very powerful concept that can change the way that you do business. Now, some of the ideas that we're going to be discussing about in this conversation is what is the paradigm shift that needs to happen first to go from attracting clients to creating clients? What kind of mind state does creating client requires you to be in? And of course, how can you master the art of creating a client with a mindset shift? So I really hope that you enjoy this topic. It is one of those things that isn't discussed a whole lot. In fact, it can also be seen as controversial, but once you understand what it really means to create clients, it can be really liberating and it can really change the way that you do business. So have a listen and see if it resonates with you. Also, don't forget to hop on to the Voice of the Entrepreneur Facebook group at facebook.com/group/Voice of the Entrepreneur. In that group, there is going to be a discussion on this topic. And if you want to participate with the community on this, that will be the place to do it. And of course, visit the website at voebher.com to check out all the other episodes that are on our list. Let's explore that a little bit. Let's talk about what does that mean to create a client.
So first of all, I'd like to mention that the way I was introduced to it was from the book, The Prosperous Coach. So I'm used to, of course, I'm a coach, so I'm used to looking at it from a coach's perspective. And it was a game changer for me to hear it that way, that there is a way which does not involve a lot of internet marketing, doesn't involve a lot of promotion around your business. There's a way to build a prosperous coaching business without any of that. And so that kind of ties into the distinction between creating versus attracting clients. Because I see a lot of people in the coaching world, in my world, that are very much focused on attracting clients into their coaching business. And what that looks like is people going and putting themselves out there a lot, making a great website, making a great business card, marketing themselves, creating blogs and videos that would hopefully attract clients to them. And creating clients is different because it's about creating an experience with the client. So it doesn't involve in telling people so much about what I offer as a service, but to actually have them experience what I offer as a service. For me, this was a very attractive way of doing it. Why? Because number one, I'm an introvert. And I like to, get into deep, personal, powerful conversations rather than multiple conversations at one time or putting myself out there just in hopes to attracting. The second reason was I seen that with deep coaching, it's quite different than information coaching, where you're providing people information around how they can achieve their goals. Deep coaching is more about the person. It's about helping them evolve. And then whatever, as a result, that is, their business grows and their life changes. But they also change. Not only the external world changes, they change as well. So creating clients was introduced to me by that book, The Prosperous Coach. Now, that being said, what's in the book is just a framework, and that's important for people to understand. It's not be used as a Bible. It's to be used as a framework. And how I look at creating clients is basically two primary ways that I would say I understand what creating clients means. So the first one is creating an experience with a client. That's what creating clients means. It doesn't mean you create a client out of somebody that doesn't want to be a client.
Right.
Right? Because it can be taken that way. It's like, oh, you're going to manipulate somebody into being a client of yours.
Exactly. I think the thought that comes out when you say creating a client, it's almost like you're playing this godlike character where you're creating clients from mud, that can be a bit unsettling for people that don't understand the context.
Yeah, and it's so true. And I see that people interpret it different ways. I mentioned earlier that it is a framework and you kind of have to make it into your own thing by how you use it, how it fits into your own values, right? For me, creating client would mean creating an experience with the client. And again, it takes into account that what kind of coaching you're doing makes a difference. At least in my opinion, it does. There's a lot of, like I said earlier, information coaching where people will come to you and say, I want to reach this goal. And you can go, okay, well, I have this 12 steps to get you there, versus helping people shift internally, shift their paradigm, shift their ways of thinking, disrupt their patterns of thinking, to help them see something completely new and help them see something in their lives, in their world, in their business, completely new. Therefore, they can take the rightful steps that they think is necessary to reach their goals. And so creating a client is more about creating an experience inside of a conversation with the person you're sitting with. And if that experience is enough for them to be served on a powerful level, which is life-changing for them, could be 1, 2, 3 conversations, then that person can decide for them if they want to become a client of yours or not. And so how that's different for me versus attracting clients would be, attracting clients, as I understand it, is more about advertising what kind of work you do. These are the kind of services I offer. These are the kind of programs I have. These are the packages I have. These are the logistics I have. This is the price I have. And this is kind of what kind of work we will do. Creating clients approach is more about, why don't we get into a conversation and you can experience what this coaching is like. And so they get an experience of your service. And also you as a coach get to, you get to know if this person that's sitting in front of you is the person you want to work with. Are your values in alignment? Are you having fun in the conversation? Is it somebody that really inspires you, that you want to coach? So it does go both ways. But yeah, on a basic level, I would say that is the fundamental difference.
So in the marketing world, there is this marketing concept called the inbound attraction marketing. I don't know if you've heard of this one, but it's being used around quite a bit right now. And what that is basically you create a persona of yourself, a brand, a self-brand, and people, when they see the brand, they see a person, an individual, a service, perhaps even a product that can solve their problem, whatever problem that they have. It could be a personal problem, a professional problem, but this person, individual, or service product can solve that issue. And that is then becomes the attraction for that person to then purchase or have an interaction with you on that level. That's inbound marketing, and it's done really well for, obviously some of the people that we see out there that are big names, that work for them, that have thousands of people following them. For them, I think that works really well. But then, of course, there's the old-fashioned prospecting of clients. People before the age of social media have been doing for the longest time, when it was really, like you just said, going out to people that you know and creating a genuine relationship with them and quote unquote creating that client from that interaction. I think that is really the difference that I see it. Now, what is your opinion on the power of these two methods? If anyone's going to pursue any of these methodologies to either create a client or do attraction client, inbound attraction marketing, which one do you think has more power? Or they're equally the same, it just depends on the characteristic of the person who is using either one of these approaches?
Yeah, that's a good question to explore. In my opinion, I don't think one has more power than the other. The reason I say that is because I don't see it black and white. I do see it as whatever's helping you get to where you want to be, that's the kind of vehicle that you should be using. It can be a mixture of both. It can be one or the other. What I see most coaches get confused on is they want to be coaches strictly, but they're using the method of strictly attracting clients. And why I see that's so confusing for them is, number one, they really don't understand that coaching is a service-based business. It is not a product. It really does depend on building a relationship with the person in front of you. An example I would give for that is, if I'm walking in a store and buying a box of pasta, for example, right? I'm going to look at the ingredients. I'm going to look at the pasta. I don't need to know the owner. I'm going to make the decision by looking at the product. Versus a service, because there's no tangible thing that somebody's getting from me. It really helps if they can experience the service, because then they can make a decision based on the experience. Whereas most of the time people go, okay, well, this is what I offer as a coach. And they try to make it look like a tangible product. Like I said earlier, logistics, these are the time frames. This is kind of the work we'll do. And when we do that, the client is not really looking, they're forced to look at it as a product. They're forced to go, does that fit into what I want? I don't know how to make that decision. Can you give me more information? Right? Versus the other way is about helping them experience your coaching. That experience itself will help them make the decision, because they can get a real life taste of how it will be if they continue. And so they don't need other information. They have already experienced the entire session.
So there's two things. One of them is that you have, on one side, you start with the product or the service. You attract the client and you say, this is what I have. And if you fit into this, then great. And if the person does fit into it, then they would want to work with that person. The way that I see creating clients is that you start with the person first. And you see how you can tailor your service or your product to them specifically, so that they get that, like you're saying, that life-changing experience. It could be with coaching. It could be with other services. You could change somebody's life by being an accountant. But if you look at the person that you want to help or want to provide a service to, and then you tailor your service around that, then really what I see this whole conversation developing into is that you've just created a client out of someone who didn't see value on what you had to offer, but you now just made them realize what you can offer them by engaging with them on that level.
Well, yes, that is one way to look at it. To go a little bit deeper, it comes down to how much you're willing to serve the person, right? At least for me, it's about like, how can I deeply serve this person, genuinely helping them making a shift in their life or whatever they bring to the table that they want to shift in their lives. And when I'm doing that, I'm helping them see something beyond what they already were seeing, right? So they get to experience that. And again, it's not about helping them experience something just so they become a client. It's genuinely about serving the person to a degree where their life is altered, or they see something new, whether big or small. And that's it. You leave it there and they make the decision. Now for me, that's a very organic way of growing the coaching business, because You're building relationships, you're serving, you're in it to make an impact, not an income. Although income is a priority, it's not the driver, right? Impact is the driver. Most attracting ways I find, and I could be completely wrong because I don't know the attracting world so well, but I find that that's driven more by income. So we start to decorate our products and services in ways which are not genuinely aligned with the experience that the client is actually getting after they sign up. Right. So one example, and I think this is in the Prosperous Coach book or another book that I read, is that it can also be used when you have products. So the example goes about, vacuum salesmen that were in the 70s or 80s or 60s or whatever. They would go door to door, and some of them would tell people about how good the vacuum is and what the vacuum could do. And some of them would go and spill dirt on the carpet and go, would you like, show them, would you like to see how it's cleaned up with this wonderful vacuum? Right? So they give them an experience of the product and they give them experience of your service. Then the client decides.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about this idea of serving the client or serving people, service, just period, simply service. Now, in the last, I don't know how many years, but it must be at least the last 10 years, the last decade or so, that this term has taken a life of its own. Service, serving clients. I almost feel that at this point that it has become pervasive enough that people are using it without really meaning it. They're doing it in a way that it is the next cool thing to do, provide value, serve somebody, and then my business will grow. But for the vast majority, I see that there is a sense of fear behind it almost, that service of the client comes after, but the first priority is always about me and how I'm going to get this. And it somehow gets disguised around serving the client. And it's not authentic. And you can see that very well in so many interactions that people are coming with this idea that I want to serve, that I want to do the greater good. Yet they're coming from a place of fear where they're thinking about, if this does not go right, then it's not going to be good for me. So it's really their interest that is behind everything that they're doing, but they disguise it as service. Now, to me, that is a sad truth. And I don't know if you see that as well, Shinan, with people that are doing what they're doing. But I guess what I want to explore is when you are in a state where you want to generate a certain income, but you have to think about yourself because maybe your survival is at stake because you're in a new business and you have to generate an income. How do you let go of that fear and then really come from a place of service? But when you're in a state of, I need to do something for myself, a state of fear, how can you let go of that and really come from an authentic place of serving others?
Right. And there's so much to be said around that. I mean, for me personally, I'm able to see as my business evolves and as I evolve, I'm able to see more and more layers to that word service and what it means. And I continue to see that, and I'm sure I will continue to learn more. Yes, I also see that service is getting kind of misused, or it's been directed and been told, people are saying that it's about service, but when it's really about them, there's a lot of self-interest involved. So what I see is that there's a misunderstanding underneath all of that. And the misunderstanding is it's coming from a place of fear, like you said. So people want to serve people, but they ultimately want to make it about them. It's like when people are so used to asking others, how can I help you? Or what can I do to help you with your challenges? What they're really asking is, how little can I do so that you can become my client after you experience that? So how do you
across the board, like it doesn't, and it's throughout industries, and it could be applicable for any person, a salesperson, a professional. It's really that broad.
Yeah, and I agree. It's everywhere. So how do you let go of that? So the first thing to understand is that the person or the people that are doing that, they are in a misunderstanding. I really don't believe that anyone is maliciously doing that. They're just coming from an insecure place. Therefore, their actions are according to that insecurity. Right. But if they see better, if they see something different, they're more likely to do it differently. So the number one thing is uh, be in it for the long term,
Mm.
right? Be in it for the long haul. If you're going to commit to something, commit to 10 years. You don't have to do 10 years, but if you commit to 10 years, your actions are going to reflect that commitment. If we're working towards a short-term instant gratification kind of mindset, we're more likely to go, gimme, 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 what's in it for me, right? Because we want to try and scale and build our business. That's another word, scale, that's all around everywhere.
Right. Absolutely.
But, that's the first thing. The second one, and I think this is an extremely important one, is have some safety in your life, in other aspects of your life, so you can risk one part of your life. I read a book called Originals. I think that's the book this is from, or at least this is what I got from it, is that if you want to play risky in one life, if you want to start a business, for example, and if you want to, well, let's just use coaching as an example. If somebody's a new coach and they want to make it about service, they want to impact people, it's really useful to have a job, right? Have a job, have a side job that takes care of your income so you can be focused on service. And if you do that, you're not going to be very needy for money. Therefore, you won't be showing up to try and manipulate people to become clients of yours. You're genuinely going to serve them. You're genuinely going to impact them. And you can take your time in building the relationships you want because your income side is taken care of. If you don't have that, then you're likely to come from a place of fear. So that's what I would suggest, like, to offset it. Have areas in your life where there's lots of security so you can risk one area of your life immensely. If you're risking multiple areas of your life, you're more likely going to act from a place of fear. So the acting from a place of fear is a side effect. It's not the core issue to look at.
So that's also, if I was to answer my own question, if you will, I would be saying the same thing. Because to me, service is all about giving what you have inside of you plentiful. So you have enough of that to give to others. If someone was to come to me and ask me for a $20 bill and all I had was a $5 bill, there's no way that I can give them that, even if I wanted to. And I see service the same way. If I wanted to give something to people and I wanted to serve them authentically, but I myself did not feel like I was fulfilled or abundant in some way, then there is just not any way to come out and give them, what I don't have. But as long as you take care of the basics, like you're saying, if you have a job, if you have something that is an income producing source that keeps you alive as you can go out and then serve others, then that will really help you. But then the question comes, people that have enough, that have plenty, and still they feel like service is not part of their agenda, but serving is just not something that they can do very well because they believe in the scarcity mindset, that there is little in this world to go around. They don't feel like the world is abundant enough that if I serve somebody and gave them without the expectation of a return, that I would have less. What about that? Like, what about people, that have that kind of mindset? Can they switch around? Can they have a mindset that can go from the scarcity into abundance?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, mindset is just something that we harbor and something that it's a lens that you're looking at the world with. So lenses are always changeable. They're not innate. And so if somebody's coming from a scarcity place, again, I would say that's under the misunderstanding. It's not so much as a truth as it is a misunderstanding of how things work in their world or the world. How can you get out of it? Well, I would say understanding yourself more, understanding what you're in it for. That's the first thing. So do some work on yourself, get a coach. Every great entrepreneur, every great successful person has a coach because you're going to be able to have them help you see things that you yourself really cannot see. You're just too close to your own life, right? And they will help you have different conversations with yourself because the conversations you're going to have with yourself in a scarcity mindset are going to be about scarcity, right? So they can help you have that different conversation with yourself. The other one is don't make it about you. If you're really in it for service, then don't make it about you. And that's one of my greatest lessons that continues to deepen again and again. It's like a spiral. It always comes back to it as soon as I think, oh, I think I got it. Nope, you've got more to learn there. And it's because we make things so much about ourselves, even when we think we don't, there's always another layer that says, how am I bringing value to the world? Or maybe I don't have enough value. Or maybe I have some doubts and fears. How do I take care of that? Maybe I'm anxious about doing this. How do I take care of that? Well, all of that is more and more pointing towards me. Mm-hmm. And the more I'm thinking about me, the less energy I have for the person in front of me. If you can start to understand that the value you're bringing to the table is very valuable, it's almost like you're giving out gifts. If I tell you to go and give out 10 gifts to people that are wrapped in Christmas-style presents, you're not going to have much anxiety and fear around that. You're going to be very excited to give it out because you understand that it is a gift. It's a valuable gift that you're giving someone. So you're less in your own head about it. How are people going to accept this? Well, they're going to be excited to receive a gift. So in that same way, the value you're giving out to people, if you really want to serve them and gift them the value that you are bringing to them or you're bringing out of them, whatever your approach is. So for me, that's one level of service that can be deepened. If you're in a scarcity mindset, go out there and make it about others and serve them deeply and impact them, and you will notice the abundance, because it's not abundance is not something you create. It's really just what you notice. It's already there.
This brings up 2 points in my mind that are quite interesting, and I want to explore them both. So first one that I want to kind of tackle is, when you say, don't make this about me. And even in your case, you were saying how you had to come back in circles, come back to this one point and kind of remind yourself that I should not be making this about me. Now, don't you see, or don't you think that is kind of going almost against our real nature? That if we have to put an effort to go around in circles, to come back to the same point and really make us realize that I should not be making this about me, then perhaps our real nature is to make it about ourselves. Why do you think it is so important to go against that, to go against this very deeply ingrained thought process or school of thought that we have that comes back to us, that it is about me and that I have to serve myself, and yet we have to fight against it to then serve authentically to others? Why do you think that is the case, that we have to fight against our own nature to bring service into this world?
Personally, I think that's not fighting against the nature, it's fighting against the conditions.
I like that.
Right? It's about the beliefs that we've gathered, the information, the data that's residing in our intellect that says survival of the fittest. And I think that our nature is compassion, love, empathy. And I mean, it's beyond what I think, because you can see it. You can see it in nature. You can see it in animals. They help each other, right? There's a lot of videos on Facebook you can see where I watched one the other day where a bear was helping a crow that was drowning in a pond. Right?
You sure it didn't want to eat the crow?
Well, yeah, that's. I was wondering that was going to be the end or not, but it was really gentle with it, and it was about helping the crow. You see that with dolphins; they help, other animals. You see that with ourselves, like when human beings see an animal in distress, we naturally want to help it. We naturally have empathy towards other people doing mean things to other people. Like something in us goes, wow, I would love to help, right? So I think altruism is our nature. It's the conditioning that's not. And so when we're fighting against things, we're fighting against conditioning. We're not fighting against nature. So again, it comes down to misunderstanding. If we're misunderstanding how world works, how our mind works, how our human experience works, we're more likely to act from that misunderstanding, thinking that that's the reality of it. So to not make it more and more about ourselves, we really have to open our eyes to the abundance that's already present and see how a collaboration mentality is much more beneficial to, everyone on an individual to a global scale than a competition mentality. I think you see that more and more nowadays, right? 20 years ago, maybe it was a conversation that wasn't so popular, But now it's so much more because a lot more people understand that as we evolve, helping each other is the best way to keep it together and evolve together.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I was teeing you up for this answer because I was hoping you were going to say this, and you did. And I'm glad that you did this, because I also personally believe that human beings are altruistic in nature, and that we really have an instinctual response to helping others. And how do I know this? Is because there was a really interesting study done that I just very recently read about. And there was that they did a study on human babies that were about 5 to 6 weeks old. And they put them in situations where people were either helping each other or in situations where people were being mean to each other. And they associated a toy with each situation. And almost all the time, the baby would choose a toy that was associated with a scenario where people were helping each other. So even when babies are not conscious of their surroundings, they're not aware of what's really happening, they're instinctually wired towards going to an altruistic situation, an altruistic scenario. So I think scientifically proven, or at least empirically now known, that humans are hardwired towards helping each other, towards altruism. And on the contrast, it's funny because they did the same study with bonobo babies that are our closest relatives. They're apes. And bonobo babies actually choose scenarios that are more geared towards dominance and being mean, for example, quote unquote. And the reason that they found that out is because bonobos associate dominance with power, and power equals more ranking and therefore a better standard of living for that individual. Yet us humans, we would rather forego that higher standard of living through dominance and choose a more altruistic response to situations. Everything that we hear about how people are altruistic in nature, it is actually a true ingrained instinctual response that all human babies are born with. And to add to that component that you mentioned, and to support that, it is really conditioning then. It has to be. Because everything around us conditions us to be self-centered, to be self-preserving. My fellow Consciouspreneur, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Consciouspreneur Journal with Shanann. I hope that it reveals something that helped you shift your perspective and helped you see things a little differently. Stay tuned for part 2 of this conversation that will be released next week. You can find the link to that conversation on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Voice of the Entrepreneur. If you believe you got something of value from this podcast, please rate and review it on iTunes. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the newsletter on voebheard.com so you don't miss out on the really amazing guests and some incredibly powerful conversations that we have lined up for you in the upcoming weeks. My friend, I hope you have a great rest of the day, and until I see you again next time, have a great one, my friend.